Brother, I'm hooked. I'm so enamored by this manga. I don't even know what to say anymore, so I'm not gonna say anything, and I'm just gonna get into my thoughts. What is up, guys? This is Kristian. Welcome to the channel. I'm a weightlifter, gamer, manga noob, and on this channel I play role-playing games, give you fitness advice, and give you reviews on things I find really awesome. Berserk Volumes 1 through 3 were an experience. Never having read manga before, it was a very interesting, unique experience for me. It was similar to reading a book and reading a comic, which I haven't read much comics either, but sometimes nonfiction books and fiction books for that matter can get a little dry for me. So this was a very refreshing thing. It was incredibly refreshing to actually see the characters' expressions and emotions. It definitely adds to the feel and to the gravity of the characters and the story. I would say that Berserk Volumes 1 through 3 were a great introduction to the story and character of Guts. You see his mannerisms, the way he reacts to other people, how he forms relationships with other people. You really got to see what kind of person he really is. But I was also left guessing a lot too about how he became the Guts that I read about. And this leads me to volumes 4 through 6, where we start to actually get deep into Guts' upbringing and childhood. Disclaimer! Spoiler alert! You've been warned. Here we go. So if you know where volume 3 ends, you know that there's going to be some pretty bad shit going on. It looks like this giant of a man, well, compared to Guts anyway, is about to do something heinous, away from the prying eyes of the rest of camp. And we're left with a cliffhanger. We don't exactly know what's going to happen, but it's kind of implied. And of course, my concerns were justified in the beginning of Volume 4. Guts is taken advantage of in the confines of his tent, and it looks like Gambino himself might have actually sold him off to this man, which at the time I didn't know if I believed, because I thought that Gambino was actually kind of warming up to Guts a little bit. And it's just like, Guts looks up to Gambino, right? And it's just a shitty situation because you want a good, like, father-son relationship between Gambino and Guts to happen, right? And so I kind of just brushed it aside for now until we got further information. And it looked like we were going to get that moment of truth the next day where Guts confronted Gambino about what happened that night. Then he chickened out and didn't say anything and just kind of brushed it off. And honestly, dude, at this point in the story, I'm kind of rooting for Gambino because of how much Guts respects him and admires him. As much as a piece of shit Gambino was in the beginning, he taught Guts everything about how to fight and gave Guts a purpose for living and a purpose to fight for. Guts didn't know his mother, and Gambino was the only one that was remotely there for him. And the more they got acquainted, the more I just wanted that father-son relationship to come to fruition, because it seemed like everything in the world was against Guts and out to get him. And I just wanted that one win for him, man. He literally came out of the womb losing. But anyway, more campaigns go by. Guts establishes his prowess in battle, even as a little kid. And then Gambino got his leg blown off by a cannonball, and basically, from there, everything spiraled downhill. So getting injured like that obviously ends Gambino's mercenary career, and that basically sends him, like I said, in a downward spiral into insanity. And of all people, who do you think he blames for his injury? Yeah, Guts. So not only does he blame Guts for the death of Shisu, his beloved, but now he's also blaming Guts for his injury, which only drives Gambino's hatred for Guts and his existence through the roof. And this drives him mad to the point where he tries to kill Guts. And all hope for that great father-son relationship just goes out the window. It's gone, never to be seen again. But not just that, we also learn what happened the night of the SA was actually true. Gambino sold Guts off to this man. I did also fail to mention that Guts did get his revenge in a pretty gruesome way, mind you. And so there's a little bit of satisfaction. But now we have this man that Guts admires and looks up to, trying to kill him. It's just like the worst situation imaginable, man. And out of self-defense, Guts inevitably kills Gambino, and from here on, the camp finds out what Guts did, and now he's deemed a father killer, and he needs to escape the camp before he gets executed. So Guts attempts to escape, they follow him. He reaches a cliff, a dead end, a place where he can't escape, and then he eventually falls off that cliff and is deemed dead. I don't think Guts ever forgave himself for killing Gambino. Even after Gambino confessed his hatred for him and told Guts that he did sell him off, Guts still admired him and respected him deeply. It's kind of crazy to think about, but in a way, Gambino was still the greatest thing to happen to Guts. Again, giving him a reason to fight and a reason to live. And even after all of that shit, he still had a soft spot for him. So I can only speculate what's going on in the mind of Guts at this point, but it's just a shitty situation. It makes me wonder why Gambino kept Guts around. Maybe because he felt like he owed it to Shisu to keep him around. But this leaves Guts to fend for his life at the bottom of the cliff. There's a pack of wolves that he fights off and kills before he inevitably just passes out of exhaustion. From here, he's rescued from another band of mercenaries led by a guy named Angus. And from there, we get our first major time skip. A whopping 4 years go by. We fast forward to another siege attack where a band of mercenaries attempts to invade this castle when it looks like their efforts are thwarted by this soldier, this knight they call the Grey Knight Bazuso, who has apparently killed 30 people at once. Yeah, he's a big boy. Nobody wants to fight this guy, except for one mysterious figure with a gigantic sword on his back. It's Guts. And 4 years did him well. He's a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger and a little bit more menacing. He eagerly wants to challenge this guy who's apparently very strong. It's a common theme with Guts, challenging people that are the strongest. He seems confident and focused. Guts, still seen as a kid at this point, was completely brushed off by this guy. Eventually they cross swords, or axe because he had an axe. Guts obviously has a sword, whatever. And Bazuso, completely overwhelmed by Guts' speed, was defeated. Guts got away with little scrapes and bruises, got a wound on his head, but he won. Even the enemy marveled at Guts' ability to fight. And it turns out that the enemy is none other than the Band of Hawks and Griffith himself. Seeing Guts fight like this 4 years later was cool to see. He is extremely gifted with that giant sword, and it seems like a combination between his training and his trauma turned him into the killing machine that we know now. But it seems at this point Guts is still a loner. He turns down a position as a squire from the local kingdom, I think, and goes his own way. And it's at this point that we finally see how Guts meets Griffith. Long story short, Guts is kind of walking away from the kingdom and the battle and all that. He's by himself, and he is confronted by Griffith and his band. Guts defends himself, killing 2 or 3 of the band. I can't remember how many. He confronts Casca, who we'll learn more about later, and then eventually is confronted by Griffith. And Guts at this point is overwhelmed by Griffith's speed, and gives Guts his first defeat. And it's at this point that Griffith establishes dominance with his skill with the sword. So Guts is defeated, he wakes up in a camp, no worse for wear, where Griffith introduces himself and the rest of the Band of the Hawk, which Guts immediately recognizes as one of the most dangerous and renowned band of mercenaries that nobody wants to come against in battle. Yeah, pretty terrifying bunch, apparently. Griffith takes Guts somewhere to talk, privately, where he confesses to Guts that he wants him. Guts, being a little freaked out by this, in more ways than one, draws his sword to fight once again. And long story short, Guts loses a second time. And again, Griffith demonstrates his immense mastery of the sword. At one point, he stands on Guts' massive sword, almost like he's taunting him. But Guts did give him a good fight. It's at this point where I start to really see a little bit about Griffith's character. So he's the leader of an extremely dangerous mercenary group. He's very ambitious, striving to achieve all of his desires. He's very charismatic and very enigmatic. He's very hard to read. You don't know if his bubbly personality is something that's actually a part of him or if it's like a front. He seems dangerous in more ways than one, but he's kind of cool. And he only gets cooler from here, well, at least for me. It's funny, he reminds me a lot of Inosuke from Demon Slayer because they both have like very beautiful faces. That's really the only comparison though. Can keep a guy guessing if you know what I mean. So Griffith enlists Guts into the Band of the Hawks because he wants him. And because I think Griffith knows that Guts is going to be helpful in achieving his desires and basically fulfilling his agenda. So it's from here that we see that Guts has essentially been passed off from mercenary group to mercenary group, never truly finding his place that he can call home. Until now. It's with the Band of the Hawks that we really start to see Guts thrive. He begins to be respected by other members of the Hawk. He's admired as a fighter and actually gets, or I should say obtains, pretty high positions in the band. And more than anything, it seems like Guts has finally found his place in the world. a place he finally belongs, at least for now. He enjoys his position in the Hawks and likes running with them. And Griffith seems very fond of him, choosing him in particular to accomplish certain tasks. All seems well. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit here. So Guts fights with the Hawks for quite a bit. He starts to get closer and closer to Griffith, like they're becoming friends. Griffith confesses his ambitions to Guts that he will achieve his own kingdom one day. And that he also has this very peculiar charm around his neck that happens to be none other than the Behelit, or the egg of the king that we read about in earlier volumes. And Griffith said that whoever possesses this will obtain the world in exchange for his own flesh and blood. Kinda cryptic. He apparently bought it from a gypsy fortune teller that we know nothing about. Whatever his intentions are, it seems Griffith is willing to do anything and everything to achieve his desires and his dreams. Like, his dream is his god. Like, he will pursue it more than anything else. And that, like, not having a dream to strive for is not a life worth living to him. So I can only imagine where this could go. The stage is being set for something tragic to happen, and I don't want it to happen. I don't want it to be true, but we kind of already know something happens. But let's move forward to the fight between Guts, Griffith, and Nosferatu Zod. This fight was crazy. It seems at this point that seeing these monstrous demon-like things are not commonplace, and that Guts has never encountered one before. Or Griffith, for that matter. Zod has single-handedly killed a plethora of people, and Guts goes in to investigate, only to find bodies strewn all over the place, mangled and mutilated. Whatever did this was not human. Guts confronts Zod and sees for himself the monster that he is. So the fight ensues, and this is by far the most difficult fight that Guts has had this far. He's literally fighting a demon. So they continue fighting, and Zod transforms into something even more evil and demonic. Guts gets overpowered by this thing, and Guts, being in dire straits, is saved by Griffith and his band. And both Guts and Griffith decide to fight this thing together. It was so cool, dude, watching them team up, Griffith on one side, Guts on the other. And Griffith was able to cut off Zod's arm, which then he presumed to use as a club to knock Guts into a wall, which I found kind of hilarious. I keep going back to Bloodborne, I can't help it, but it reminded me a lot of the Amygdala boss fight, where it rips off its arms and uses them as weapons against you. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But at the end of all of this, Zod still overpowers both Guts and Griffith and defeats them. But Zod sees the Behelit and for some reason stops fighting. He recognizes it as the Crimson Behelit of the God Hand and decides to spare them for some reason, but not without a warning or a prophecy to Guts. Death will pay you a visit, a death you can never escape. And that how being true to Griffith and being close to him will lead to that death. This has to allude to the fact that in order to acquire demon-like powers, one must sacrifice somebody very close to you. And again, I can only imagine where this is going. But Guts and Griffith survive another day and heal from their wounds. From here, we get to the point where Griffith is rising in the ranks of the Kingdom of Midland, distinguishing himself militarily. So much so that he has acquired the attention of this general named Julius. This guy named Julius did not like the idea of Griffith, a commoner, achieving a position of equal merit as him, a general. So he sets out to assassinate Griffith during one of the kingly hunts. He fails to do so, long story short, and puts himself in Griffith's crosshairs. So in turn, Griffith tasks Guts with the retaliatory assassination of Julius. And I can only imagine Griffith wanting to do this in order to climb up the ranks even higher. I don't know if Griffith planned Julius to try to assassinate him, or if he's just being the opportunist that he is. But Griffith took full advantage of this. Guts succeeds in killing Julius, but not just him, but his young son, Adonis, as well. Guts didn't know that it was a young kid walking into the room during the assassination attempt, and in the heat of the moment, he drives his sword into Adonis, pinning him against a wall. This moment was hard to watch, dude. This really hurt Guts. In a way, I think that Adonis reminded him of himself as a kid, and how he earlier saw Julius training Adonis with the sword and being extremely hard on him like Gambino was to Guts. And he saw how Adonis just wanted to please his father. But what's done is done, and the guards have been alerted. Guts needs to get out of there. The whole scene sucks, man. You see the kid's face as he's pinned against the wall, just looking back at Guts, and Guts being in disbelief as to what he's just done, grabbing the hand of Adonis before he lies lifeless before him. It's a brutal scene, man. One of the most brutal for me so far. Like I said, Adonis was treated harshly by Julius, and he only wanted to please his father, and now he'll never get the opportunity to do so. What's even wilder, though, is watching Griffith's expression after hearing that the assassination attempt was successful. Not a sliver of remorse. Just this evil grin on his face. It was almost like a mask-off moment for Griffith. Like the true him came out, and this warm, bubbly person that he was in front of Charlotte, the daughter of the king, turned into someone menacing and dark and, well, evil. He reminds me of another anime villain from the anime monster, Johann Liebert. Both are extremely smart and charismatic. Both are charming, both know how to win influence, and both are masters at manipulating other people to get them to do what they want. Both are massively good looking and charming. Johann was evil as hell. I mean, I don't know about Griffith yet. I mean, it's looking that way, but you know, it's a little too early to tell. And just like that, there's no guardian deity in Midland except for Griffith. And we finish off with the story of Casca, who is basically like the right-hand man, or woman, I should say, of Griffith since the very beginning of what we've seen from the Band of the Hawks thus far. We got to see her story of how she was brought into the band. We got to see how she met Griffith under the circumstances of how they met. Or I should say how Griffith found her. She was sold off by her father to a noble, was it? Someone wealthy. And this man's sole purpose was to take advantage of her and, you know, do the dirty deed. Mind you, she is 12 years old at this point. It's disgusting. And Griffith enters the scene and intervenes. He stops the man from doing the thing to her and gives her a sword to fight back. And that's what she does. She fends off the attacker, eventually killing him out of self-defense. At this point, Casca sees Griffith as her savior, as her hero, and swears to follow him wherever he goes. And Griffith gives her the choice to do what she wants. She knows how to fight now. And so now we know why Casca is so fond of Griffith, or really in love with him. So it seems. He was there when she needed somebody most, and he gave her a reason to fight, a reason to live. And that's where it ends. Like I said, I am so hooked to this manga so far. I'm very interested in the story and the characters, where this whole thing is going. I need to know more about the relationship between Guts and Griffith. I'm so enthralled by it. I want to see how it all went south, because they seem to be on very great terms right now. Griffith even at one point calling Guts his equal. I mean, it was kind of implied when Griffith was talking about how he can only call somebody a friend, someone who is his equal, and he was thinking about Guts at the time. So I can't wait to get into volumes 7 through 9. If you guys like hearing my thoughts on this manga, make sure you like and subscribe. It lets me know that you guys like this kind of content and want me to make more of it. And let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. I read all of them and really appreciate hearing from you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you in the next one. Peace and God bless, y'all.